Force Dudley says Trump, there were very fine people on both sides of World War II. Kind of what he's saying there. Anyway, Blue Heart subscribed for, oh my God, on Twitch. I've never seen this. 15 months. Damn, Blue Heart. Says, these are legitimately the types of crises Captain America warned us about in the 90s. The villains from the show are actually in charge of the corporations in real life today. Yeah, but Captain America shouldn't be political, I heard on Newsmax yesterday. Anyway, thank you for that. Okay, with that, we don't have much time, so let's launch into this last topic again. Apologies in advance. Just a couple of weeks ago, Marjorie Greene got in actual trouble. I don't mean from like people like me criticizing. I mean, even Kevin McCarthy and some Republicans said that her commentary that people who are opposed to the vaccine are effectively like Jews being hunted down in the Holocaust was too much. You can't say that. You can't talk about yellow stars and all that. But it's okay. She learned, she went to the Holocaust Museum. She said, she's not gonna make comparisons like that anymore. And then come to today, where she tweeted this: Biden pushing a vaccine that is not FDA approved shows COVID is a political tool used to control people. People have a choice. They don't need your medical brown shirts showing up at their door ordering vaccinations. You can't force people to be part of the human experiment.
God, you sound just like her. I really can't get over like I can't do a better impression. It's like the low is low and it's that exact cadence.
That was pretty good actually. Unfortunately, what she said wasn't good because the brown shirts, of course, were a paramilitary organization that helped Hitler and the Nazis get into power. So the brown shirts hunted down and killed people, among them Jewish Germans, destroyed businesses and all of that. They were one of the armed wings of the uprising that led to the Nazis. And she says, if you don't want a vaccine, the medical brown shirts are coming to your door. So once again, you're the Jews in the Holocaust. Didn't we go through this? This is you can say almost anything. You can say Nancy Pelosi should be shot. You can say that there's space lasers and all that. The only thing you learned not to say was we're the Jews in the Holocaust, and it lasted a week and a half until you started claiming it again. And this time, will there be pushback, Francesca? Will Kevin McCarthy be aggrieved by this?
No, she took the Holocaust Museum tour so she could get more anecdotes and analogies to compare vaccines with the Holocaust. That's literally all she just learned that the brown shirts were a thing. And she was like, oh, okay, so the brown shirts, all right, so I'm gonna do that. Like she's just figuring out more ways to make this brash and awful and offensive comparison. And we all knew when she made her statement, it's wrong to make these comparisons. We heard the narrator voice. When she's like, I will not make any more comparisons, the narrator she did not stop it making comparisons. She did not stop, and she will not stop. Marjorie will never stop.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Here is what she said. The Holocaust is there's nothing it's comparable, but there's nothing comparable to it. It happened, and over 6 million Jewish people were murdered. There is no comparison to the Holocaust, and there are words that I've said, remarks that I've made that I know are offensive, and for that I want to apologize. And maybe I can apologize for the next ones too, because they come in a couple of weeks. And here's the thing, is it kind of fun? Yes, the news is terrible, so I'm laughing as the defense mechanism that I have. But this is a congresswoman. She may not have committee assignments or whatever. She's still a congresswoman, and she is still 100% minimizing those who were murdered by the Nazis to make her anti-scientific, anti-vax position seem more honorable or something. She's been told, she had her opportunity to learn. You shouldn't have needed it, but she had it anyway. And what she has learned is, I can still get away with whatever I want. So screw all those people, screw the people who are still dealing with the long legacy of the Holocaust and all the tragedy and horror and all that. Screw all of them. I'm gonna use it to justify my own BS.
Okay, yeah.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, two last things. One, it doesn't even come close. If you're talking about a genocide in another country, if we're talking, I'm sorry, Are there like brigades coming to anyone's home? Has anyone actually been asked to show a vax card? I haven't. I've flown on a plane. I've done comedy indoors. I've gone to restaurants. Never been asked.
Yeah.
Is that good or bad? Who knows? I've never been asked. So there's no one knocking at the door. There is no one checking. I actually, in a lot of cases, especially when I go into a bar and it's like, they're like, oh yeah, let's check your ID. Make sure you're 21, make sure you're legal enough to spread the virus. Like
yeah. It doesn't actually exist.
Who is checking?
Unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't actually exist. We're unfortunately out of time, Francesca, but thank you so much for joining us for Big News Wednesdays. Really appreciate it. Everyone check out the Bituation Room. Might be becoming a little bit more common. We'll have to see about that. Yes. But thank you very much, Francesca. Always glad to have you on. Everybody, I will be joining Anna Kasparian on the second hour of the Young Turks, the birthday girl, Anna Kasparian. So everyone should definitely check that out. And coming up in just a few minutes is Indisputable. Go to youtube.com/indisputable_TYT to watch Dr. Rashad Ritchie. And it's gonna be awesome. Ben Dixon's gonna be on there. But until then, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. And I'll see you soon.
You know what it is. Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richard. We got a whole lot of show today. On the program, my big homie, Benjamin Dixon, progressive activist and host of the Benjamin Dixon Show, will join me today on the program. Also, we have conservative John Burnett. John is a NYU adjunct professor, also managing director of One Empire Group and political strategist. We're gonna break down some topics for debate. You don't wanna miss it. I always enjoy debating other professors. My top news for the day. Let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard members of the Trumpite crew say that nobody from the Trump regime or no Trump supporter actually committed acts of terrorism on January 6th. This has now become an adopted narrative by those on the right. It used to be the far right. Now it's an adopted narrative by those on the right. You have members of Congress even subscribing to this narrative that no, Trump supporters did not actually storm the Capitol, but in fact, Antifa. It was Antifa who did this according to their narrative. Let me remind you of what was said initially. Here it is.
And the mob that attacked the US Capitol building Wednesday, killing a police officer, appears to have been overwhelmingly composed of supporters of President Trump. But in right-wing online circles, rumors are swirling that the destruction was caused by Antifa, far left-leaning anti-fascist militant groups who claim to resist neo-Nazis and white supremacists at demonstrations. However, there's no evidence so far that that took place Wednesday.
Whoa, wait a minute. I actually have some evidence of a fake Antifa member who has been arrested by the FBI, who because of an affidavit, we know that this person dressed as if he was actually a member of Antifa. So there's a man who has been arrested. This is quite interesting. A Virginia man arrested in connection with the Capitol riots, dressed in all black on January 6th so that he would look like an Antifa member, according to an FBI affidavit. Now this guy's name, and I hope I'm not slaughtering the name, is Phi Dong. Let's put up one of the pictures that we have. He's one of more than 520 people charged so far in relation to the riot, dozens of whom have been linked to far-right groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. He has been charged with disorderly conduct, obstruction of an official proceeding, and knowingly entering a restricted building without lawful authority. But here's the other part of this narrative that's very important to understand. This individual who decided to dress like he was a member of Antifa to promote a false narrative reminds me of something. You know what this reminds me of? Let's go back to what has been deemed historically as the Boston Tea Party. Now we all know it was not a party whatsoever. It was actually a riot. Property was destroyed, violence took place, and theft took place. Now, because the men who did this act of terrorism, because they were in fact white men, they are listed as patriots in our history books in the United States of America. But they did in fact destroy property. They did in fact challenge and change commerce. They did in fact interrupt the business flow of that day. Now, some will say they were justified in doing so, and that's a different argument and debate. I'm willing to have that debate any day. But let's be very clear. They dressed as Native Americans during the Boston Tea Party riot in order to do their deeds, in order to enact their violence. Well, very similarly, that is what happened here. Now, here's what else took place. He also told an undercover FBI agent that he conducted surveillance efforts on the Capitol a month after the riot took place and was part of a militia group for which the agent attended meetings. Here's why that's important. It doesn't stop with January 6th. So those of you who may say we don't need a January 6th committee, or we don't need to investigate this further. Let me tell you why that's a mistake. Those individuals are connected to various groups in this country. They are in fact domestic terrorists. Terrorism is not a moment, it's not an event, it's an ideology. They still hold the ideology of someone who wants to rip the country apart by way of criminality and violence. That still exists. This individual does not exist by himself. He's connected to an organization, to a movement hell-bent on destruction of our democracy. To talk more about this, I got my big homie, Benjamin Dixon. Thank you, brother, for being on Indisputable.
Thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure.
Once again, the narrative is completely opposite of what they've been saying. They have been telling us that there are Antifa members or were Antifa members who attacked the US Capitol, but in fact, these were Trump supporters. These were militia supporters who tried to mimic Antifa to carry out their criminal activity.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things that we have to remind the people of is that Antifa is not an organization along the lines of Proud Boys. It's not an organization. There's no chapters. There's no hierarchy. There's no president of Antifa. But it's this ubiquitous boogeyman. It is what Republicans use this week, because next week it'll be a new boogeyman, like, it'll eventually be the war on Christmas boogeyman. But Republicans are really adept at using a centralized figure for everyone to be afraid of. And in this case, it's Antifa. And that gentleman knew that if he dressed up as such, that he would help weave into the national narrative that this wasn't Donald Trump supporters doing this, but this was actually Antifa, when we all know better.
Don't you find it quite fascinating, the level of strategy they are willing to employ, even in the middle of what seems to be chaos? And this is why it's important to pay attention to moves like this, because it talks or highlights a sophistication connected to what they're trying to do. They are perfectly willing to do a criminal act and intentionally blame another party for doing it. Number one, you're telling me you're not a true believer in what you're doing. Number one, you're not a true believer. Number two, you're a coward, because you would rather hide behind your sheet de facto, you'd rather hide behind your hood de facto than to be proud of what you actually believe in. Now, I completely disagree with these guys in methodology and also in policy, but damn, to dress up as someone who's adversarial to your cause, to create a false narrative about who was involved. And you're right, brother. Antifa is just one of those branding mechanisms utilized by the right in order to clump everybody in to what they want to be the bad person.
Exactly right, and this is how they get away with it. They're Republicans. They in this conversation. Republicans have become masters and have been masters of propaganda, half-truths, distortions, and yellow journalism. And they understand the power of a talking point. And they also understand if they just keep saying Antifa long enough, then they will have Republican supporters willing and who believe in it enough to die for it or to march up the steps of the Capitol pretending to be Antifa in order to vilify something, watch this, Dr. Richie, that doesn't even exist.
Right.
Antifa doesn't exist, but this man believed in it so much that he marched up the steps dressed as one.
The biggest criticism, one of the biggest criticisms I have of Democrats is their inability to message properly. They are actually on the right side. Progressives, left-leaning individuals, even corporate Democrats on occasion, are actually on the right side of the historical narrative and the progress narrative. When you look at popularized programs that we have adopted as normative in the United States of America, those are Democrats that came up with those ideas. Those were progressives of that era who pushed that legislation that everybody, Democrats and Republicans, benefit from today. And you would be hard pressed to try to rip some of these programs away from Americans today, but they were in fact progressive policies of that era. So how is it that the majority of Americans are with Democrats as it relates to a woman's right to choose? The majority of Americans are with Democrats as it relates to funding or increased funding for K through 12 education. The majority of Americans are for police reform, criminal justice reform. You can just go down the list, brother. But somehow Republicans have been more successful at branding their message to the American public than Democrats have been.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what it is. It's the ability to brand. It's the ability to package it up into a talking point. And I think that is something that they have mastered and something that Democrats sorely need to learn.
Yeah, let me shift gears because this was quite astounding. These people, and I gotta say it, these people. So you're looking at Kayleigh Mcenany, whatever the hell her name is. She's a liar. She's a liar who served as the White House press secretary under former President Donald Trump. She lied about slavery. Now, damn it, we know you had to lie for Trump. We know you got a paycheck to lie for Donald Trump. Okay, we kind of almost get that. You sold your soul, yes. But we understand there was a paycheck behind it. We understand that you were a sellout. But literally, you don't have to lie about slavery. So this individual who was part of an all-white panel on Fox News. And first of all, do we have to say all white when we talk about Fox News? Okay. So this all-white panel on Fox News, they decided to discuss Representative Cori Bush's July 4th tweet. And here's a bit of how she introduced the segment.
The White House briefing set to start any minute now as we await reaction to the verbal fireworks over 4th of July. After some Democrats, left-wing activists, and even the news media smeared the all-American holiday with claims of racism. Squad member Cori Bush blasting Independence Day, tweeting, quote, "When they say that the 4th of July is about American freedom, remember this, the freedom they're referring to is for white people," while NPR took issue with the Declaration of Independence, calling it, quote, "a document with flaws and deeply ingrained hypocrisies." All this bashing leading to the New York Post front cover page, which read "Red, White, and Woke," with its editorial board asking, quote, "Why do liberals in the media take such joy in trashing America?" The haters never take a day off from hating, that is clear. And they never take a day off of getting the facts wrong. We know most of our forefathers, all of our main founding fathers were against slavery, recognized the evils of it. There's a great piece to that end on Heritage called 1776, not 1619. But I'll leave it to you. You know, they're so wrong on so much. Where to begin?
My grandmother would have said, use a damn lie. Now, no, the founding fathers were for slavery. George Washington enslaved hundreds of men, women, and children. Thomas Jefferson enslaved over 600 people, including Sally Hemings. James Madison enslaved over 100 people. James Monroe as many as 250 people. Here's another not so fun or convenient fact for white supremacy ideology. The majority of the signers of the Declaration of Independence owned slaves, 41 out of 56 according to one study. Let me get my red dot graphic here. You see those red dots? Those red dots represent the people who are part of the foundation of this country, who actually owned slaves. They were slave holders, slave owners. There's much history about this. This has been documented, well documented, documented again. But then she says this ridiculous thing on what's considered to be a major news network, and not one person challenges her false narrative because it fits their ideological narrative of white supremacy. We don't need to blame America for racism, that somehow the founding fathers were pure at heart. And Ben, I gotta ask this, brother. Don't you find it quite insane that the same people today who are supportive of the writers of the Constitution, signers of the Declaration, etc., they will say things like America is a Christian nation, but it's not. It is not a Christian nation. As a matter of fact, the people who were the architects of this country, literally were fleeing other Christians to create a secular government free from religious oppression.
It's an inconvenient truth. They know this to be historical truths, and so what they have to do is change the historical record. And they cannot do that in the face of what they have labeled to be critical race theory, because we know critical race theory isn't a catch-all phrase to represent everything that America has done wrong, but that's how Republicans use it. That said, well, yeah, America does have a history of racism, white supremacy, Jim Crow, and slavery. And there are vestiges of it still being felt by Black peoples to this day. And there's structural, systemic level issues that need to be addressed. And Republicans know it's simply about power. If we actually concede to the fact that there are systemic issues, then we actually have to give up some of our power. So Kayleigh Mcenany, whatever her name is, she's playing that role. She's facilitating that role and getting paid well to do so.
You know, it's quite ironic when you really consider the fact that we actually have more to gain by unifying as common folk in the United States of America, rather than subscribing to these false ideologies that are perpetrated by those who are in power, especially those who are in political power. Because the reality is the Constitution was not written for regular people. In order to participate in democracy, not only did you have to be white, you had to be wealthy. You had to be white and own land. If you were not white and a nobleman or white and landowner, you could not participate in the democracy that they designed. So while we can debate on what's happening today because of the expression of racism and bigotry and systemic oppression, there is no debate as to who you were considered to be when this country was founded. And if it is in the document of the creation of this country, that means that the systemic oppression has permeated beyond the founders of the Constitution, and we have to remedy that. And that's part of what critical race theory teaches, is that the issue of bias is also codified in our systems, our laws, and our institutions. Yeah. So we'll see what happens if they will issue some kind of, hey, you know, she got it wrong, we apologize. Or perhaps she makes a statement on Twitter, hey guys, I was wrong about this. Yes, they did actually have slave owners. We'll see if something like that happens. But I would not hold my breath, because nobody cares on her side if she's telling the truth or not. Nobody.
That's the thing. I wanted to leave it where you left it, because that was that period. What you said closed it out, but they don't care how much they lie, Doc. They relish, they revel, they dwell in their half-truths and their propaganda and their lies. They need it as much as the rest of us need water. They need their lies.
But see, it's going now from half-truth and half-lie to whole lie and no truth. That's where it's going. There was a time, Ben, when the conspiracy theorists represented the very far right. And they existed on the fringes of the political movement inside of the conservative party. Now they coexist as a mainstream and mainstay political movement. And what's happening now is that they are controlling the complete narrative with their complete dishonesty. Rather than mixing the truth and lies, they are now mixing lies and getting away with it.
Absolutely. And I'm fascinated though, Dr. Richey, how many lies are they gonna have to tell to maintain their power? Because that's the game that we're playing right now. I mean, everything from the filibuster down to qualified immunity, all of these are different layers of lies that have to be told to maintain the system of white supremacy in this country.
Well, it's endless as long as it continues to be a means of power. We got more on the other side. Stick and stay, it's indisputable.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in there.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, I don't know, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years, believing that it was actual berries. Yeah, she's like, these aren't real berries at all. I'm like, I got news for you, Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you got to force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
What Donald Trump has done as president has cut taxes for the wealthy and made life better for rich people. But he's made life worse for poor people.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
The opportunity to make money off of tragedy is the American way.
There is only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea of what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
ShopTYT.com now has books. One of them is Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People. That's a saying that AOC said, they've got money, we've got people. It's the best tracing of the AOC victory I've seen anywhere. It's the most accurate, and it's got great details. The book actually goes all the way back to Jesse Jackson and how he's the original Bernie Sanders. If you wanna know how we're gonna win going forward, those lessons are super important, and they're in Ryan's book. So check it out right now at ShopTYT.com.
We found the perfect person to lead the army, Allison Hartson.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let's go to some of these viewer comments. Make sure you are tuning in on the YouTube channel, Indisputable TYT. Indisputable TYT. Follow us on social media, Twitter and IG at Indisputable TYT. Make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel, okay? It's free, it's easy, it's very quick. Let's get it. TYT member Electric Miscellaneous says, there isn't a right in the GOP anymore, at least in terms of national politics. It's all far right. A very large majority of the GOP either actively supported overturning an election and a violent insurrection, or remained silent and complicit while their colleagues did so. That's absolutely correct. Cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug, says 1619, the slavery brought to the US. 1776, US becomes own nation. 1863, enslaved blacks were freed, sort of. Note the priorities there. Good point. YouTube, Super Chat, Nicole Smith, thank you. If it had been Antifa, Trump would have had the National Guard there before the outer barrier was breached. Keep up the good work, Doc. Good point, thank you for that. Marco Antonio says, I preemptively felt sorry for whoever is facing Dr. Richard today in the bullpen. That's funny, thank you. Shamira Hill says, hi, just found you and I love your show. Thank you for the truth, knowledge, and insight. You're amazing. Well, thank you for that, and I think you're amazing too. Pedal Pink says, right-wing extremists posing as anti-fascists caused the violence. They're organized. That is correct. Twitch, my Twitch folks, Red Lock Dragon, the ultimate projectionist. They were claiming over and over that Antifa was dressed like Trump supporters on January 6th when it was the other way around. Of course. Genocide 2002, they weren't called framers of the Constitution for nothing. LOL. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free. Back off. I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
This is currently making the rounds on Reddit. Nothing says I'm a male Karen like some loped out shades and sandals from the Gap. This white male Karen is upset because there's a crew working. This crew happens to be Mexican. And he's really, really mad that they have the audacity to make noise while they are in fact working. And he threatens them basically. He seems as if he wants to fight at least one of the crewmen based on his own actions. So here's your anti-Mexican, anti-work male Karen.
Service to come out here? Okay, show me your IDs, show me your IDs. I am the freaking person living behind listening to this atrocious noise coming into my house. Yeah, you're screwed up. Okay, immigration, yeah. Okay, you moved that tile saw inside the house. No. Hey, chip it. What are you doing? Chip it. You're gonna have the immigration service out here.
Show your ID. Who in the hell? How do you just walk up to a work crew in your Gap sandals and start demanding people to show you their ID? They are working. Now, this would be a very simple dispute if you did not bring in the whole immigration thing, and obviously he has some issues there. But I find it quite fascinating that he's not the only one who lives in that area, but he's the only one who decided to try to get rowdy with this work crew. But it was in what he said. You see, he believes truly, and I know we call them male Karens on this show. You may call them Chads or Kens or whatever, it's okay. All of it fits. But the philosophy behind believing that you, a person of no authority, a person who has not witnessed any criminal activity whatsoever, to demand that people at their jobs give you their ID. I guarantee you wouldn't walk up to an all-white work crew and demand that. Promise you that. Ben, your thoughts?
I'm thinking of James Baldwin, and I always think about him in this kind of scenario when he talked about the Western Union lady. He was at the Cambridge debate with William F. Buckley, and he talked about the Western Union white woman who, at the end of the day, even though he had far more money than she would ever see, she still had this attitude and disposition towards him because she was white and he was black. I look at this scenario and see that this man actually believed that he had the authority and the right to insert himself into these people working and in order to demand what he felt like he should have. That is a sense of entitlement that is indicative of this nation. I mean, isn't it par for the course? I mean, every step of the way, this is what you get in this country.
Yeah, and it's very important to continue to highlight moments like this where simple arguments or simple disagreements, when they turn into a racial dynamic especially, and you see the overreaction of an individual who thinks that they are supposed to be able to control a process that no one has given them authority to control, it's important to highlight it. And let me tell you why that's important. Media is a powerful tool to shape social understanding. And what we do on this program is we want to wake people up to the social understanding that they, in fact, do not own another human being. That is gone. That is over with. That does not happen in the United States of America, or at least it should not happen in the United States of America. And every time I see one of these incidents, and I'm thankful, yes, that we have video footage, but I want to know how many times this happened for decades. Nobody had a video camera. Nobody had a camera phone. All people could do was tell the narrative. All they could do was say this happened. I remember years ago being, before the camera phone was in high usage, in our communities, in the Black community, we talked extensively about being targeted by the police, about police officers harassing and violating our constitutional rights. I've had that happen to me before. So Absolutely. We know it happened, but we did not have the video evidence back then to prove it.
Absolutely. Rodney King was one of the first times we got video footage of what we've clearly known in the Black community for a long time. But I'm harkening back to that old clip. That old clip of Sanford and Son where Red Fox was talking to his son, and his son Lamont was telling him, the leading cause of death for Black men is heart disease. And Fred Sanford was like, I thought it was always the cops. We've been dealing with this for a long time.
Yeah, a very long time, and it is important to continue to highlight these incidents, and we will do so. So obviously, that work crew continued their job after they were able to record this man, and I firmly believe the reason why he did not try to attack somebody, but acted like he was going to attack somebody, is because he saw that phone and that video going. It has become a protection for many people. Okay, one of the saddest stories I've seen in a very long time. Okay, a Black student took his own life because people at a hospital did not give a damn about him. 21-year-old college athlete Samuel Uko went to the hospital in the middle of a mental health crisis. So he's 20, he's an athlete. He goes to the right place in the middle of a mental health crisis. But instead of receiving care, he was shown the door and later found dead in a lake. A security video shows him pleading for help and being removed by force by the security at this hospital. Let's go to the first video.
No, leave me alone. I said I don't because I have mental issues. No, please help.
That's him being thrown out of the hospital. He was there because he needed attention, he needed care for his mental health issue at that time. They threw him out of the hospital. You saw how many security guards threw him out of that hospital? And he's yelling, leave me alone. What he's really saying is, you're not the people I'm here to see. I need help. I need help. But instead of help, in this Canadian hospital, they threw him outside, okay? That's the first part. Last spring, Samuel Uko posted a Snapchat video begging his friends for help. He was in the lobby of a hospital in Regina, in Canada, just a few hours north of the Montana line. He said, and I quote, "I need help, bro. I need help, bro, for real," Uko said into his camera at some point in the video. A hospital staffer behind him stands behind him and demands to know, why are you taking a picture? The CBC obtained the court documents from a lawsuit brought against the Saskatchewan, thank you, Saskatchewan Health Authority, the SHA, for failing to provide care to Uko. His family was awarded $81,000 for his life. Let me say that again. His family was awarded $81,000 for killing him. The SHA apologized to the family, admitting the hospital, and I quote, failed to provide the timely assistance he needed. That's him. That's the young man, athletic, a student, went to the right place, recognized he was having a mental health disorder, cried out to his friends via social media, but also went to the right place where he's supposed to receive help. And instead of receiving help, he received a death sentence by that hospital. And then his family, after he's dead, they receive $81,000 for his death. Injustice on top of injustice. Ben, what are your thoughts?
This story is so tragic. And I saw as you were struggling with it, Dr. Richey, because it is a heavy story to cover. This brother seeking and pleading, begging, audibly wailing for help. And instead of getting help, he was thrown out. And then now he's dead. And it just reminds me of how Black people are perceived in the health system, and how they don't see our pain as a normal pain. Like we could take more. The actual studies that show that this is the perception that doctors have of black people, not categorically, but I think one instance is too much. And we've seen this time and again, especially with Black women, the treatment that they need in hospitals is oftentimes what they don't receive. And because they don't receive it, they lose their lives.
You make a very compelling point that I can echo by way of research. Obviously, this young man wanted help, needed help, sought help in the right place, by the way, not the wrong place, but it was the wrong place in that moment. Now, we don't know if he was denied because he was Black. I assume so. I assume it has something to do with it, but he gets kicked out of a hospital. He then commits suicide. He was at the hospital for suicidal thoughts, and this is how they treated him. The hospital admits to wrongdoing, and then they pay off the family $81,000 for his life. What a tragedy. But here's the reality of the science. Morehouse School of Medicine and others have promoted the data that says if you have a white doctor, this is statistical data that is available right now. If you have a white doctor and happen to be a Black person, you have a lower chance of living. That's me summarizing the data. That same study showed if you are a Black person with a Black doctor, you have a higher chance of living more years. Now, it takes a few doctors to contextualize that data, but it basically means that Black doctors tend to listen to their patients more than white doctors with Black patients. And you see the real disparity in the actual treatment, the remedy, and the medical diagnosis as it relates to Black people who are under medical care. That study is available today. And Dr. Oz, who I don't agree with much, Dr. Oz even talked about that study on his show. So this is something that has to continue to be highlighted because obviously it leads to the death of young Black men too, because as you said, Ben, much research shows that people just automatically assume black folks can just take more and do not need the assistance they say they need in the realm of healthcare.
Yeah, it's so tragic, and we lose people. These are real lives, and $81,000 is just nothing for a human life.
Exactly, man. Yeah. Okay. We got more. Indisputable. Stick and stay.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you, or that you were
that it was that it had been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
All right, welcome to Dr. Rashad Richard Indisputable. This is going to be quite interesting. I don't know if you can handle this much truth on any day of the week. The unrest inside of the black community and communities that support them. It's because these cops are not held accountable. You have a family calling 911, and that family is expecting help, not expecting their loved one to be killed by the very people they pay to protect and serve them. Did you ever notice a cop that you work with call any black person the N-word or target people because they were black? Nope. But we disagree that somehow police officers are not also subject to the same systemic biases and racism as any other level of law enforcement.
It sounds like for everybody's need who wants to crucify the cops without looking at it.
No, crucify bad cops, brother. Bad cops.
We don't need the government to step into our lives, mandating that we should be wearing a mask.
You think you putting on a mask, Trey, is government intrusion, but you don't think the government telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her body it isn't government intrusion.
Where does life begin?
You want to go there? I can read it to you, bro.
You seem very well prepared. Certainly more.
Of course, why would I not be well prepared? They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform throughout this country, so I won't stop, and you won't stop either.
I've been a fan of TYT, I believe, for the last 6 years.
5 years.
3 years now. 7 years.
4 years now.
2.5 years. I just started because she got me into it.
My boyfriend actually watches it every morning and every night, so I kind of just started watching it with him, and I love it. I mean, it's the only way that I find my news.
Looking through YouTube, looking for like, political shows that look cool.
I came across a very angry rant from Cenk, and that's when I knew.
So I was immediately in love with the show. And then I had haven't missed a live show since then.
10 times a day, I watched the show in the morning.
Whenever I had a bad day in high school, Young Turks.
Man, Cenk is just so blunt and honest, and I love the honesty, and there's no BS behind the news, and they just tell everything like it is.
There's nobody censoring them. There's nobody there to say, you can't do this, you can't say that.
That feel of authenticity makes it seem like what they're saying is true.
I feel like I get the real story from the Young Turks.
I am TYT.
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 Breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. Bernie Sanders wants to break Wall Street, and he wants to break it real bad.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let's go to some of these viewer comments. We got a lot of them. I will read as many as I can. TYT member Jam says, man, throwing a person out of a hospital while they're crying for help, Hippocratic oath my ass. YouTube super chat. Anthony Phillips says, I am a psychiatric nurse. I know from experience that mental health crises are both feared and misunderstood in the ER. Sadly, this is a norm today. Wow. About the founding fathers. Omega Shinron Dragon says, Kayleigh Mcenany, that's awesome, is a problem inflicted on us by CNN and the other problem may be Trump. Remember that they gave them their platforms before being in government. Interesting point. Moon Dragon says denial of reality is the Republican norm. Yep. Sunkissed in Favor says Kevin is sometimes worse than Karen. About the black student, Mbali Shali, MT Shali. I get it right one day. Dr. Richard makes me shut up and listen. There is no end to the education one gets watching this show. Well, bless you. Thank you so much for that. Phyllis Master says, I have been in his shoes. Hospitals treat mental health emergencies as if you are just drug seeking. Very sad. Twitch. Very, very, very good point, says Peachy Shari. The conversation has changed because we catch this on camera. Yep. Hashtag man Karen, Mr. Ryder. Thank you. Octo Squiddies, entitlement is a hell of a drug. Yeah. Auntie Faye, this is sickening. And not the first time radicalized people have been victimized by our healthcare system in Canada. Very sad. That young man should be alive today. Okay, another not great story. It's a sad story, but it deserves our attention. There's a black woman, partially blind. She's blind in one eye. She claims she was tased, stripped by force. She's disabled. Let's be very clear. This is a disabled black woman. This is out of Illinois. She is now fighting back against the McDonough County Sheriff's Office and the local police department after claiming she was subjected to false accusations and a non-consensual strip search during a DUI arrest. A DUI arrest. A video from the McDonough County Jail was released online that showed an incident of her being tasered and strip searched. Viewer discretion is advised on this one, okay? But I want you to see this and I will give you some more background. They later stripped her completely naked. They used a taser on her. She was unarmed and inside of an enclosed facility. The reason why she's crying like that and yelling for dear life is because they're not just stripping her clothes, they are stripping her dignity. So let me give you some background to this story. Harrison was pulled over by an officer in the Macomb Police Department who separately claimed they were responding to a call about reckless driving. Harris, who was blind in her left eye, said she became confused after she noticed a police car was trailing her. Harrison pulled the car over to the side of the road after realizing police were instructing her to stop. Because of her discombobulation, Harrison was not able to relay that the passenger side window could not roll down and unlocked her door, which caused tensions to explode. Harrison said officers pulled her door open while yelling different commands. To her surprise, Harrison was handcuffed without being told why she was pulled over, never underwent a breathalyzer or sobriety test. However, the state law allows officers to arrest on probable cause if they believe a driver is under the influence. She never got tested for alcohol. Never, not one time. But their state law allows for this to happen without the breathalyzer or a field sobriety test. Harrison told the outlet that prior to the confrontation, she dropped off her kids at the YMCA and picked up a stranger who was caught in the rain and needed a ride. Harris, once again, blind in her left eye, said she became confused after she noticed the police car was trailing her. Harrison pulled the car over to the side of the road after realizing the police were instructing her to stop. Now, here's the thing. She's 31 years of age. She faces 5 to 7 years in prison for 4 charges: aggravated battery, driving under the influence without proof, resisting a peace officer, and improper lane usage. Harrison has also now lost custody of her 3 children. Harrison opted for a bench trial, meaning a trial by judge, and was found guilty by this judge on all charges. She is facing her sentencing hearing on August 10th. Now, this is why it's important we talk about this story, and at Indisputable, we will follow this story. You have no proof whatsoever that this woman was driving under the influence. Obviously, this woman was extremely distraught over what just took place. She does a trial by judge. Typically, when a person does a trial by judge, they're doing that because they really believe in their innocence, and they believe that a judge, being a trained lawyer, being a jurist, will be able to decipher what the law says and what actually happened. But in this case, the judge says she's guilty of everything, And now she's facing years in prison, and all she was doing was driving in the rain that day. Ben, your thoughts?
That video was extremely difficult to watch, to listen, and I don't know where. No, I do know. Let me correct myself. I was gonna say where this lack of empathy comes towards black people, but it's rooted in this American system. You cannot see a person as a human being and treat them the way that woman was treated in that video. To all the case that you laid out in terms of the breathalyzer and the inability, they don't have evidence of it. None of that stopped them, Dr. Richey.
No.
Did you notice how none of that stopped them from treating her like she was less than human?
Yeah, and this woman's life has been turned upside down. We have no evidence of her being an irresponsible individual. She was a good mother, is a good mother. Her children have been taken away from her because of this. We have a saying in the legal circle called home cooked. And that's when all of the good old boy system rallies around one issue and you're not part of it. And it seems like she has been home cooked by the locals in that judiciary or justice system. And it's quite unfortunate, but we are going to follow this and we are going to make some noise because definitely I think this is one of those cases ripe for appeal. All right, shifting gears. Senator Ron Johnson, he lied. I know that does not come as a shock to anybody, but it's interesting to note how these politicians get away with saying one thing to one crowd and something totally different to another crowd. And the people who are supposed to be part of his crowd will never call him out on it or hold him accountable to what the truth actually is. So Senator Ron Johnson has repeatedly gone on record and said that he is not a climate denier, okay? So him being one of the Republicans who would try to, hold the middle line on this one, decided to just go all the way on the other side based on a comment he made in June, early June, to the Republican women of Greater Wisconsin. This is a luncheon that he was at. CNN's K-File uncovered the video of the Wisconsin Republican telling the laughing audience that he actually believes that the climate crisis is bullshit. That's what he believes. Now he told them this. Remember, this is the same guy who said, "Oh, no. I'm not that guy. I am not a climate denier." But he told these women, "Oh, that's a bunch of bull." Okay? He's not even talking code anymore. He just straight out said it. So let's get it. Take you to the video.
The target tonight, Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson. To CNN and his local paper, he says stuff like, "My statements are consistent. I'm not a climate change denier." Then our K-File team finds this when he's back home at a Republican women's lunch, when you speak the truth.
I don't know about you guys, but I think climate change is, as Lord Moncton said, okay? And by the way, it is.
Well, that's what the man said. That's what he believes. And he said that with actual conviction. He didn't do the Ron Johnson Senate thing where I believe that climate crisis is real. He didn't do that. He didn't say it like that. He said it with actual heart. He believes it's bull, okay? This is quite interesting because obviously this has now become a big political issue where it should just be a science issue, but it's not. We have another video. Okay. My brother, I know it comes as no shock that Ron Johnson lied or a politician lied. But to be so extreme on both sides of one argument is quite telling of your political value system.
Yeah, I think everyone should look really clearly at the fact that Republicans are so open with their hypocrisy as it pertains to this environment and climate change. Ron Johnson has no problem knowing the truth about the climate situation, as well as lying to his constituents to rally them up and to rev them up. I'm just fascinated at they would really see this country, this planet destroyed for the sake of power and have no compunction about it. And so they are very dangerous. I think this is just one clip in a long series of evidence of why they have to be removed from power.
Yeah, and obviously this was not his first time being free with his actual belief around other Republicans. So here's what you're really seeing. You're seeing a politician who says one thing for the cameras and another thing for his crew. And when you have that, you have an individual who will vote based on what he tells his crew, not based on what he tells the camera. And then he will use any type of pretext and context to justify his ridiculous voting record, because all along it was connected to the heart of his base. And those are the people you saw at that luncheon who giggled and laughed, and they're laughing away the future of their own children, the future of their grandchildren. You're laughing that away when you don't take climate change seriously.
Absolutely. I wonder what they're gonna do. Well, I think they're counting on the fact that they won't be here. And so they are not concerned with the condition of this planet for their grandchildren.
They don't have to explain themselves at all. All right, before we go, man, just something I was thinking about being kind of on topic, but not. Do you remember the cartoon Captain Planet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Remember, okay, Captain Planet was a dope ass cartoon.
Yeah.
Captain Planet as a cartoon could not exist today. Just think about that.
Wow.
Think about if they tried to put Captain Planet back on the show, back on any network today as a show. It could not exist today. You would have members of the Republican Party saying it's brainwashing and indoctrinating children. You would have those on the right and the far right saying that this is something that networks should be against. You would have all of that happening right now. So it shows you how much we have de-evolved in a way.
Absolutely, I've got nothing to add to that, Dr. Richie. That is absolutely right.
Yeah, my brother, always a pleasure to have your insights on Indisputable. Tell people how they can check out your show, the Benjamin Dixon Show, and how can they follow you on social media?
They can find me on Twitter at Benjamin P. Dixon, or they can watch us, and they could watch us every single morning for the Benjamin Dixon Show starting at 8 a.m. right here on YouTube.
Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate your time as always.
Pleasure.
All right, we got more on the other side. The bullpen is next. Stick and stay.
I'll predict right here for you, Chris. I think Donald Trump will leave office before his term is up. He'll be humiliated, embarrassed, and I know him. He's not going to want to lose, and he's going to run for the hills.
You got that bet all day long.
Okay, let's get after it. Now, so look, Jake has made some good predictions, and this is in good fun. I could not disagree more.
There's a little bromance between the two of them. You got that bet all day long, Janky, you. Oh, you stop. In the meantime, let's call him out on the damage.
But
I just got a Roku set. Did basically a little bit of channel surfing, and I was like, there we are.
Yeah.
There we are. And then I turned it on, and it was John and Brett on Damage Report making fun of me.
Oh no.
So you are so busted. I even took a picture of it, okay? They're talking about my predictions. I got a new prediction for you, John Idarola.
You're doing a show that's blowing the doors off everybody.
Young Turks is the largest online news network, not a big deal. We're gonna rock the boat. We're gonna be counter-establishment. We're gonna tell people the truth to the best of our abilities. We're so sick of this corruption. We're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care. Fourth day on Occupy Wall Street. Last night we launched Wolfpack. It's us pushing our ideas out there, trying to help the country in every way that we can, trying to make this place just a little bit better. Reporting from the Hillary-Bernie debate, I gotta be honest, you know what we do, we cover it for real. For us, this system isn't working. Free and fair elections.
And when he told the cops that day, when they came to drag her away, and he said, if you're gonna chain her, you're gonna chain me. If you're gonna arrest her, you're gonna arrest me.
Hi, I'm Bartholomew Joseph Kyle. I do audio for the main show, The Young Turks. I also do audio for Post Game. I started in 2006. I met Cenk Uygur at the Iraq for Sale screening that was directed by Robert Greenwald. And watching that, I want to figure out a way to be part of something that's genuine and authentic.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me go to some of these comments and then we'll get to our next segment. And thank you all for opining, okay? Let's go to TYT member Electric Miscellaneous says, what the police officers did to that woman was torture. It was intentional. It was unnecessary. They used violence to degrade her just because they could. She should not be going to jail, be the one going to jail. Those cops are a danger to society and should be the ones in court facing jail time. Agreed. I'm a damn liberal. I'm a damn lib. I got it. Okay. I have to turn the sound off. It's killing my soul. Yeah, it is graphic. That's why I made sure we did that warning, that content warning in the beginning. But it is also necessary. It's necessary that you feel moments like that. Let's go to our YouTube super chat. Tatted Reaper says, contact Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. He is a very compassionate man and a Democrat. He should get involved with Ms. Harrison's appeal. We're on top of it, all right? King T says, you said it, Doc. Great job, Ben. Agreed on both, thank you. Twitch, you can call me Jess. I am so incredibly embarrassed by Ron Johnson. He is a senator from my area and I sincerely apologize to America for this trash. Well, damn. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, we have John Burnett. John Burnett is a Republican strategist and financial industry professional with over 20 years of experience in risk management. He's also an adjunct professor at Hampton University and New York University. He has a long, extensive resume. Check out his bio when you get a moment. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, John, listen. Before the show, you said somebody told you this was going to be painful. You're a smart guy. I don't think this is going to be painful for you, brother. So let's get into it. Part of what we're going to discuss today, the reality of voting rights in the United States of America. So let me give a little bit of context for the discussion. Obviously, everyone is well aware that we've had more voter laws passed during the last state legislative cycle than in the history of us dealing with voting laws. And it all came from one particular platform. It came from the idea that the election was rigged and the election was stolen from Donald Trump. So I have to first ask you, and I don't want to presume what you believe about that. So I'm going to ask you, do you believe the election was in fact stolen from Donald J. Trump?
I believe that there are some fundamental flaws in our electoral process that needs to be addressed. I think whether you're a Democrat or Republican or in the middle or politically agnostic, you can actually agree that many people are left on voter rolls who are either dead or moved out of state. And it was especially problematic when you had states mail out ballots statewide with I don't want to say a corrupt, because that would be unfair, inaccurate voter rolls. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we reinstill trust in our electoral process by making sure that not only are our voter rolls clean, but we have other controls in place. And I mean controls in a good sense to make sure that, you know what, the efficacy, the reliability, and other things are where it should be, so that way it gains trust of the electorate. I'm from New York, as you could tell, even in the primary, Democratic primary, 135 or 120, at least 125,000 test ballots were part of the original vote count, right? So there are so many different issues going on in different municipalities. We just got to clean up our act across the board.
Man, that was a very professorial answer. So let me once again ask you, because you did not answer the exact question, but I do agree with you that voting irregularities do happen. But Democrats have been claiming these irregularities must be challenged and transformed. So we have been saying that, but this is something a little different, brother. This is something that is so extreme to say that state governments, the judiciary, as well as left-leaning media conspired against one man, being Donald Trump, and literally stole an entire election. Now, I get what you said, and I agree with 90% of what you said, but I do want you to directly answer, do you believe the election was in fact stolen from Donald Trump?
I'll say there are many parts of this election that came down to specific swing states where the irregularities provided an environment of unfairness. That's the best you're gonna get out of me.
Man, you're not gonna answer the damn question. All right, okay. So let me move on to the next topic. Not next topic, but next question. There are some laws that were passed because of this big lie. I consider it to be a big lie. Any irregularity that was noted was not statistically significant enough to overturn the election. I know that a lot of emphasis was placed on Georgia. That was done so by Trump himself and also his former attorney, Rudy Giuliani. But even if they won Georgia, let's talk in a hypothetical place in La La Land. Even if he won Georgia, he still loses the electoral college vote and he loses the popular vote. Even if he won some of these other states in question, he still loses the election. And I don't think people are thinking about it mathematically when they say, well, this state had this problem and this state had that problem. But when you combine both of those states, he still loses. He still does not get the constitutional mandate to govern. He still loses the electoral college vote.
Well, when you take, let's say 3 states in particular, right? Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. Arizona's still going through their recount. And I'm hearing that there's some positive elements coming out of that in terms of the voter irregularities.
What's going to happen, Professor?
But also, you're a lawyer as well, right?
No, I'm not. I'm in law school. I'm not a lawyer yet. I'm in law school. Yes.
But you have that you have that lawyer look to you, right?
I'm working on
it. That right balance, no pun intended. However, you know or should know in your first year of law school that the state officials cannot unilaterally change election law. That needs to come down to the state legislatures, right?
Now wait a minute. When you say, do you mean federal officials, or are you talking about
like governor or state attorney or any other state official? That one person or a collective of 2 or 3 of them cannot unilaterally change election law. That was against the law to begin with, right?
No, that's not true. Let me give some pushback to that. That's not true.
Okay.
Pre-clearance, which was a Supreme Court ruling that said particular states that have a history of violating the constitutional voting rights of particular demographics must go through a clearance process with the Department of Justice in order to change the election in their local state. You are familiar with the Supreme Court saying we're going to now set that aside as a ruling, and the United States Congress will have to now jump in and change the statute.
But when was that? When was that passed? When was that stated?
This was just a few years ago, brother. The Voting Rights Act was set aside. Which was codified through a Supreme Court ruling that said, listen, for these particular states, they must go through a Department of Justice clearance process in order to change their election rules. That's what that said. So the Supreme Court set that aside and said now the United States Congress will have to simply make a law if they want these states to be protected. And it was so interesting because the logic of the Supreme Court when they did that was that it was no longer necessary, that elections were basically fair, that elections were freely accessible to all people, that these discriminatory practices no longer were taking place, and it was not an issue of judicial remedy anymore. And they decided to step out of judicial remedy.
Let's talk details. We're both professors, so let's act like this is an exam, right? Not some abstract conversation. What specific actions in fine details were found to violate individual voting rights.
So let me go down the list.
People never talk in specifics.
But I do. So let me give you some specifics. Let me go to Senate Bill 202. That is a state Senate bill out of the state of Georgia. Now, the first thing I want to correct you on, Professor, is that state governments, they do have the ability to dictate the processes of how and when a person votes. They can change the time from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. if they choose. They can do weekend voting or weekday voting if they choose. They can employ early voting or absentee voting if they choose. They can have locations for people to vote.
That is not every state.
Sir,
not
unless,
every state.
Professor, unless the Constitution of that state specifically prohibits it. That is the only caveat to what I just said. The state of Georgia did not.
In Pennsylvania, it has to go through the state legislature.
So let's talk about Georgia, and then we'll go to Pennsylvania. Okay. In the state of Georgia, you have a state Senate bill called Senate Bill 202. In that state Senate bill, it did a few things. One, it made it against the law, made it an actual misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in prison, if you handed somebody water or a snack while waiting in line to vote. Now that even received criticism from Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham said, I don't know why they put that in the bill. That came from a Republican, but they put it in the bill for a very specific reason. Churches and nonprofit organizations, they were running commercials, nonpartisan by the way. They were running commercials saying, hey, if you have to stand in these long lines, which by the way, all of the long lines in Georgia are in black neighborhoods, 100%, virtually no exception. So they said in order to make sure people know that they will be hydrated, that they will have opportunity for snacks, we are going to run advertisements telling people, listen, if you come to the precinct, we're gonna make sure that you have water, you have Gatorade, you have snacks. That's all they did. And that did make more people feel comfortable about going out and standing in a long line in order to participate in the election. So they made.
It sounded like you had more than water. It sounded like you drank Kool-Aid. So let me ask you.
Wait a minute. That was almost funny, Professor. So go ahead and speak on that law. Speak on that provision. Does that make sense to you?
So I'm not a lawyer. I'm a businessman, right? So let me tell you exactly how it goes down in New York.
But brother, talk about the bill because you asked me about a specific. I just gave you one specific. I got a bunch of them.
I'm drawing a parallel.
Okay.
Right, in a democratic state. Right? So there are certain laws in New York where you cannot campaign, where within a certain distance of the polling station. Meaning that you can't pass out water, you can't pass out anything.
That's not what the New York Post says.
As a candidate,
that is not what
as a PAC,
sir.
In anything political, you cannot do that. Why? Because if an individual accepts something from you, whether it's a piece of literature or otherwise, then that person might feel obligated to consider your candidate, right? Or whichever party or position you're lobbying or stand for. So to remove all of that confusion and so-called pressure, you cannot do certain activities within certain distance of the polling station.
So let me break it down.
Blue state.
Okay, brother. Let me break down where you're wrong at. Give me an opportunity to respond to that. You're conflating two things that do not actually exist together. It is correct that campaigning within the statutory limits of a polling precinct is against the law. It's against the law in New York. It has always been against the law in Georgia. It's against the law in every single state in the United States of America. That law has been established for decades, brother. We're not talking about that law. You're conflating a new law which says you don't have to be campaigning. You do not have to be engaged in electioneering. Simply bringing somebody water as a nonpartisan, non-political organization is now an actual crime based on that Senate.
Have you ever run for office?
Hell no, brother.
let's say I was running for office, right?
Okay.
We all know, right? We all know people skirt the rules.
Oh, come on, man. You can't justify a bad law. This is a bad law, brother. Come on, you're a businessman. It's a bad law.
So if I wanted to skirt the law, what I would do is take those water bottles, take my beautiful smile, right? My campaign picture, right? And relabel the water bottles.
But that's against the law.
And pass those out.
But Professor, that's against the law, Professor.
Why can't you pass out water? Right?
Because if you're using it, let me explain. You asked a question.
Combine those two things together,
sir.
In terms of passing out.
It's a dumbass law, and you know it, brother.
So forth, within a certain distance.
Okay. All right. We're going to go to the next point. Bottom line, it's a dumbass law. It criminalizes individuals who are not engaging in electioneering whatsoever. And it was only set forth in order to penalize those that motivated a particular group of people in a particular demographic to the polls.
Fair, free election is not engaging in undue influence.
All right, brother. All right, we're gonna disagree on the water being illegal in a voting line when it was never illegal before the Senate Bill 202 in the state of Georgia. Let me ask you about this entire push from Republicans, mainly conservatives, who are saying that the United States Congress, and I'm specifically talking about acts like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, right? HR 1, dealing with how we unify or create a uniform code in our election processes. There are people who say that Congress does not have the constitutional authority to dictate to states how to actually run elections. What do you say to that?
Let's talk about the details of the bill, right? Not this high level element, but I'll answer your question because I don't want your viewers to say, this guy doesn't like to answer questions and he's a professor. Let's say his students don't want to answer questions, right? That would be unfair. So I think I believe in federalism. I think it should be left up to the states, right? I don't think the government should do overreach by dictating how states should govern their elections, right? That's number one.
Do you think it's unconstitutional?
According to the way the Constitution is written and what I've heard and what I observed, I think it's an overreach by the federal government.
Let me explain something to you. Okay, I'm gonna let you respond. So you think it's overreach by the federal government. I respect your opinion, but your opinion is not rooted in fact, Professor. The truth is, the federal government does have the constitutional authority to deal with election laws. Let me read something to you. This is from the US Constitution. Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1. Here's what it says verbatim. The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. That's your state law. That's your state constitutional mandate, that states have the authority to do this. And then it says, semicolon, but. And that's the part that no one wants to read on the right. It says, but the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations. That's in the Constitution, brother. That's in the US Constitution. So the Constitution literally is contradicting what those on the right are saying is unconstitutional. It is very constitutional for the US Congress to be involved in changing election laws in the United States of America.
So in terms of time and place, right? So we have to look at what the words actually mean, add context to that. When you look at the federal law, is it saying that now it should be legal for ballot harvesting, to do mail-in voting and all these other things that are governed?
You don't think mail-in voting is legal? You don't think mail-in voting is legal?
And executing, I'm take my comments in totality, sir.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that those words after the colon or semicolon, I forgot which one you said, that doesn't mean that the federal government can come in and completely take over and dictate every aspect of the electoral process. That would be false and misleading, sir.
Okay, that's interesting. So let me ask you this question. Do you believe?
Can I interject another parallel, right? Because parallel provides understanding.
Okay.
Many people on the left are quick to misquote and misunderstand certain things in the Constitution.
Like you just did.
To try to prove their own point. But when it comes to free speech, the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, they don't want to follow those words.
Okay, brother, you're kind of going all over the place. So it was actually you who misrepresented the Constitution by saying that this was basically an overreach of the federal government when the Constitution says it is not an overreach. It's actually part of the constitutional platform.
The federal government, absolute authority over.
All right, brother, that's not what I said. That's not what I said on this show. But I made it very clear that anyone who says the federal government or the United States Congress cannot get involved in changing election law is absolutely wrong based on the Constitution. And I read to you where it's at in the Constitution. I sourced my data, I sourced my information on the show.
And what I said to you and to your viewers, sir, that the bill that you had mentioned, all the items in the bill, that's why I want to talk specifics.
So what items in the bill do you not like?
The bill itself is an overreach.
Okay, brother, just tell me what part of the bill you do not like. Okay, let's talk about some that you actually gave.
Like ballot harvesting.
All right, and you also said
mandating ballot harvesting is an overreach by the federal government.
All right, brother, I have a limited amount of time. You also talked about mail-in voting, which is really ironic to me that somehow that has become a great evil or prohibition. Number one, the vast majority of state legislatures that approved mail-in voting were Republican-led legislatures who approved mail-in voting 10, 15 years ago. As a matter of fact, the president of the United States has always voted by way of mail-in voting, absentee voting. And now all of a sudden we're saying that that is illegal. That means that everybody who participated in this democracy before these new laws came into being, or new proposals came into being, voted illegally. Is that what you're saying?
Just so that you're
including the president.
Just so your viewers are not misled, right? In terms of absentee voter or other extreme circumstances, that has always been permitted by mail, but not mail-in balloting to replace going to the polls. See, it's very important that we get this right and share the right understanding that mail-in balloting, you say that it was passed 15 years ago? Yeah. Most people never even heard of mail-in balloting being part of the regular electoral process because it is not. For absentee balloting and other extreme circumstances, not for the norm. So
you're saying, let me get this right.
And we get the right understanding.
Okay, so let me make sure I clarify what you're saying. You're saying that absentee voting or mail-in voting should be permissible under select circumstances and not permissible as a formation of normative democracy.
Whatever, right? Because our infrastructure is not set up for that. We talked about irregularities from the very beginning.
Who gets to make that decision?
Dead people on voter rolls, people that move to different states, and
Professor, who makes the decision?
Okay,
I got you, brother. Listen, I got like 2 minutes left. Who, in your opinion, makes the decision as to what selected group should be able to absentee vote? Who?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think we could agree on what I'm about to say. Let's put it to the electorate. What do you want? And let's pass it state by state and not allow either just the governor or a state attorney general or an elected body, state body of officials decide for the voters. Let's put out a referendum in each state and see what the people want.
Yeah, I'm actually not against those referendums statewide. Those referendums have been significantly impactful and beneficial, especially in some southern states. For example, in the state of Georgia, There was a referendum put on the ballot during the last election that said, should we get rid of qualified immunity, basically? And the people in Georgia, still a Republican state, they said, yes, we need to get rid of qualified immunity for government workers, i.e. the police, right? And so in the state of Georgia, all right, hold on, we'll debate that next time. But the state of Georgia, now a Superior Court judge can actually lay aside qualified immunity in certain circumstances because of that ballot initiative. But Professor, I want to have you back on the show. Let's talk about qualified immunity next time, all right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you being on Indisputable.
You got it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, remember these things. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.